kept repeating. Middle class economics. Middle class economics. First of all, what does that mean? And I think he proceeded to say everything it didn't mean at the State of the Union address. What exactly is middle class economics?
You know, he'll have to define that in the days to come. Basically, he seemed to use this term undefined and say if the recovery is happening because I'm running middle class economics.
Right.
He's not running middle class economics. He's running the same old program of we should tax one group and hand it to another group. It goes back to his story about the family that for 7 years have struggled through and they're making it in life in America. And he suddenly seems to think this is the first time in America that's been possible. I'm sorry to say that's been the story for 240 years in America, that if you come and you work hard, you have the opportunities there. That is America. That's not a new middle-class America that he's created under his presidency. That is America, and that's what we've actually fought him against for the last 6 years, is to not turn that off with regulations and with mandates and all the things that are out there that make it harder to do what he described that couple, what they have done.
I imagine last night they must have had to strap you and Senator Inhofe and the rest of the Oklahoma delegation to their seats so they didn't jump up. But when he actually stood up there and took credit for the fact that we are now more energy independent than we have been in years, I'm thinking that's in spite of you. You haven't done jack squat to help us out. That must have made you livid.
Oh, that was milder than what it was 2 years ago,
right,
when he took credit for fracking and said fracking was a government invention from government research from years ago.
I don't think so.
That's the only reason we have this revolution is because of the government research that was done on the Department of Energy.
Yeah.
And so now that was actually a milder version. The amazing one to me was when he took credit for what is all this great stuff that's happened with Russia and how, you know, Putin was said to be this great chess player, but now obviously he was right. Obama was right. And that Putin's on the run. But that is because of oil prices.
Absolutely. Bingo.
American policy. Oil prices have collapsed, which is causing the Russian economy to collapse.
Right. Staying with the oil theme here, and I got a still shot of Maxine Waters jumping out of her seat with this great big surprised, joyous look on her face. But he was talking about the Keystone Pipeline. Now, you remember when he came through here in, 2012, when he was campaigning, he stopped in Cushing, and he said he was going to use the full weight and authority of his office to expedite this thing and get it done. And, of course, it's still not finished. But he said last night that Democrats and Republicans used to agree on this. He says, so let's set our sights higher than a single oil pipeline. Let's pass bipartisan, legislation. He was talking about an infrastructure plan that could create more than 30 times as many jobs per year and make this country stronger for decades to come. What infrastructure plan is he talking about, and how do we pay for it?
I said, how do we pay for it is the great unknown here.
Right.
The infrastructure plan he's talking about is any highway bill that we can get out there. Now, there's not an issue with doing highway construction for federal highways, interstate highways. That is an interstate commerce issue and always has been. It's when we get off into side roads and we get off into flower beds and we get off into museums and all those things, and it suddenly drives the cost up. It's all the mandatory union wages rather than allowing states to actually derive the cost on it that drives up the cost on that, and those are all federal dollars. What he's arguing, it's an apples and oranges debate. He's saying Keystone Pipeline's too small. We need to go for this federal thing. The Keystone Pipeline is a private enterprise. That is private dollars. There's no federal dollars at all in the Keystone Pipeline. So he's saying that this private experience is not big enough. We need to do a big government run piece. We need to let the private sector do what the private sector can do, and that will actually stimulate the economy rather than saying that the private sector is not enough. We've got to have more government to be able to intersect the economy.
Stick with me. More coming from Senator James Lankford, his reaction to the State of the Union address last night. You're listening to the Pat Campbell Show here on Talk Radio 1170 KFAQ, where Tulsa comes to talk.
It's Wednesday morning, and you are listening to the Pat Campbell Show on Talk Radio 1170 KFAQ. Now, weather from the KFAQ Storm Lab.
It is a cloudy, cold start to our day with temperatures in the 20s and 30s, so bundle up as you head out. We're going to see plenty of clouds for today. Remaining cool, temperatures in the lower 50s. Cloudy for tonight, overnight lows lower 30s. For Thursday morning, chance for rain, snow mix, mainly Tulsa to the south. Should end by afternoon with temperatures in the mid-40s. From Tulsa's Channel 8, I'm meteorologist Clint Boone for Talk Radio 1170 KFAQ.
They're back, cocked and loaded. The Event Center at River Spirit presents 38 Special.
Friday, January 23rd at 7 p.m. The Event Center at River Spirit. Tickets on sale now at the casino box office or online at riverspirittulsa.com. Don't miss 38 Special, Friday, January 23rd, only at the Event Center at River Spirit.
You thought the season for gifts was over, but there's still one remaining. Go ahead, open it up. With more Lexus certified pre-owned selection than any other time of year, now is the time to get the exact Lexus you've been waiting for. Get 1.9% APR on all certified pre-owned models, each one meticulously inspected and backed by a comprehensive factory warranty. See Lexus of Tulsa, 4210 South Memorial.
Selection based on average monthly inventory. Not all customers will qualify. Offer ends February 2nd.
Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer is a must-have for all busy parents. With just one scan to the forehead, Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer takes your child's temperature quickly and accurately. Available at Walgreens and other fine retailers.
Hi, I'm Schnitt. This is a different kind of show. We're open to anything here on Schnitt. I'm going to be the first radio talk show host to maybe consider jogging during the show. Maybe I'm a buffoon. Maybe I'm an imbecile. Maybe I'm an absolute incompetent. So, I'm a geek, all right? I'm a geek.
Hey, it's Schnitt. Join me weekday afternoons at 2 on Talk Radio 1170 KFAQ.
Written in these walls are the stories that I can't explain.
We are talking with Senator James Lankford from the great state of Oklahoma, getting his reaction to last night's State of the Union address. James, one of the things that I got a kick out of, this was sort of like a bonus last night. During his speech, the Commander-in-Chief snidely commented that that Americans don't want constant fundraising from Washington. Well, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but apparently during the speech or right after the speech, people were getting emails from the president personally asking for money. And gee whiz, I thought he was busy.
Yeah, that was the laughter of the line that you played earlier when he said, I'm done running campaigns.
Yeah.
You heard applause, and I thought, no one actually believed this. He's done running campaigns.
Right.
Last night's speech was almost entirely about the 2016 campaign and trying to help Democrats there, and to try to be able to establish his legacy. But he spent all this time, it's fascinating to me, chastising people, saying you're all about fundraising, you're all about politics, and everyone says, that's all you've been about for 6 years that you've been here is one long campaign.
Sure.
We need actually someone that's going to actually run policies and try to make deals. And he did the same thing with a statement of, let's find the areas where we can agree and let's do that. He and I have had that conversation before and said, you and I agree on this area. We disagree on that. We disagree on that. Drop those things because we've got to make progress on tax policy and other things. And he's told me point blank, no, that's not how you do it. You have to do some things you don't like, and I have to do some things I don't like, and we can't just do the common ground issues. And then last night to say something completely different. It just one more night of the same kind of stuff.
Right. A couple of things I observed last night. First of all, this is the first time since 2001 that Al-Qaeda has not been mentioned by name in a State of the Union address. What say you about that?
Yeah, it was very surprising in a couple of ways. One is Yemen fell as a government yesterday. A year ago, the president held up Yemen as a success story and said, we're dealing with terrorism in Syria and other places like we have in Yemen.
Yeah.
Then Al-Qaeda related, and also the individuals that are backed by Shiites in Iran overran the government in Yemen yesterday, and the government completely collapsed. So he didn't mention anything about that yesterday, and that's been a major operation in his presidency. So I was surprised that he started with terrorism at the beginning, but then I was doubly surprised that he didn't come back to it for 15 minutes and then just barely touched on it.
Yeah, maybe I missed it, and I even tweeted about this. Did I miss the part where he mentioned going after Islamic extremists?
No, I don't think you missed that part. I was actually in the room and didn't hear it either. Yeah, he did find time to be able to talk about how many Muslims agree with us and they're peaceful people.
Yeah.
But he did not find a moment to talk about Muslim extremism, which
maybe
is on
next
the rise.
time. Yeah, maybe next time. Maybe we ran out of time. The other thing I thought was pretty interesting, this year's speech, he didn't ask Congress to send him an immigration bill to sign. Isn't that weird?
He did not, actually.
Yeah.
He did not. I was also surprised by how little he talks about health care and how little he talks about immigration within his speech. He barely glanced on both of them.
Okay. So if raising taxes is the way to prosperity, okay, why didn't he do that when he had control of the House and the Senate in the first 2 years of his presidency? I mean, because that would have been the perfect time for him to get those tax increases through. Why would he wait? It just doesn't make sense. Why would he wait until there's a Republican-controlled House and Senate? That doesn't make sense.
Well, he's actually tried to push that through the whole time. One of the largest tax increases in American history was passing Obamacare. So they did a major tax increase on that to pay for that program, which, again, will not be enough. But what he didn't do is deal with real rates. But he raised on the medical device tax. He raised on the upper. He actually took away what's called the special needs children exemption. For people that have special needs children, they no longer get the tax credits for some of the costs that they occur. So all those tax things he took away, and he did. But he did not deal with the brackets. He didn't deal with the fairness. He talked last night about trying to take away loopholes, which, by the way, I agree that we should take a lot away the corporate loopholes. But he wants to both raise the rate and take away loopholes and do a double tax move there, and that's just not rational.
I about fell out of my seat last night, as I'm sure you did, when he said, as Americans, we respect human dignity. And I'm thinking to myself, well, unless they're still in the womb. You know, it's sort of ironic coming up on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade to even say something like that, because the rest of the world knows that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah, there were two lines just like that, Pat. He made the comment about we respect human dignity, and then later he said children are valuable to us as Americans.
As long as they make it out of the womb.
You know, it's correct. As long as they make it out of the womb. What I tell a lot of people, typically a child's born about, let's say, 19, 20 inches long. So basically, he's interested in children about 24 inches tall and taller. But if you're shorter than about 24 inches, he really doesn't care about you.
Wow.
And that's just not a rational way to be able to look at it.
Let's get to the grab bag of freebies here. You know, the community college thing is you know, here in Tulsa, we don't need that. We've had that, I think, since 2007 with TCC. And so, you know, we're doing it on our own. We don't need, and when I looked at the price tag, now initially it was $60 billion. I think it's gone up to 80. But this is another one of those gigantic unfunded federal mandates where the states are going to be asked to pick up at least initially $20 billion of the cost. Where are you on this one?
Yeah, I'm obviously not supportive of that. What is surprising to me is how many times the president has talked about how bad No Child Left Behind is, which No Child Left Behind is a bad law. It was President Bush taking what was decent education policy in Texas and saying now everyone needs to do that. Mm-hmm. No different than saying this is a great plan in Tennessee, what he held up last night. Tennessee does this, and so we're going to federalize it, and everyone's going to do it now, and we're going to tell everyone how to do it. Every state has the decision to do this on their own. If they choose to do it, as we have in Tulsa, then we choose to do that because we see that the future is valuable and the investment in that is valuable. But to be able to prop up a system in some states and in some places where it is not to the standard of what's happening in Tulsa is a mistake to us, and it's also federalizing something that's a uniquely state and local responsibility.
I kept trying to, reassure, ground my listeners last night. I said, just remember, everything that he's asking for, more than likely, will not happen. Am I right or am I wrong?
You are correct on that. That is 99% of what he said is not going to occur. And he knows, and he's setting that out there as an agenda, and he's hoping that some of the states will pick up some of these things. As the minimum wage push, that he made a huge minimum wage push, and multiple states did pick up and pass a minimum wage law.
Right.
But that's a decision of the state, and quite frankly, those states have that ability to do that. That's the great thing among federalism. If those states choose to do that, they can, and that's terrific. Do it if you choose to, but in other areas, they don't.
One more, and I'm going to let you go. This mandatory sick leave, okay? Who picks up the tab for that? Who pays for that?
That would be the employer, and so that's another mandate down on employers to raise the cost. I've had multiple employers that have texted me or raised in smaller businesses saying there is absolutely no way that they can do that, and the price on it is about 15 days of paid sick leave. Now, that's what a lot of employers do to keep good employees. They also provide paid sick leave.
Right.
But for a lot of small businesses and hourly workers, there's just no way to be able to do that. It was interesting. In one moment, he talked about how America is the only growing economy in the world right now, and then he said, basically, let's do things like the rest of the world. Let's do things like Europe and everyone else to do paid sick leave. And I think at one moment you say we're better than everyone else, and the next moment you say we're behind everyone. If we do it like everyone else, we'll get everyone else's results.
Right. Hey, great talking to you, Senator James Lankford. Keep fighting the good fight, and we'll talk again soon. Appreciate it.
Right, I will, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll be right back after the news here with our own David Prock.
6:35 on News Radio 1000 KTOK. Last night it was the State of the Union address where the president had things to say like this. We can't slow down businesses or put our economy at risk with government shutdowns or fiscal showdowns. We can't put the security of families at risk by taking away their health insurance or unraveling the new rules on Wall Street or refighting past battles on immigration when we've got to fix a broken system. And if a bill comes to my desk that tries to do any of these things, I will veto it. Senator James Lankford joins us now on News Radio 1000 KTOK. Good morning, Senator. Was it just me, or did the president have a little attitude last night?
Yeah, no, he seemed to have a little bit of fire last night. And I guess that you run a sports analogy and everything, that's okay. You can choose to do that, but we're trying to run a country.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. What do you think of the veto threat?
There's not a veto threat. He's stated that before. He's trying to remain relevant. He said the last 2 years, all Democrats are looking for who is next. At this point, who's going to run for president, how they're going to try to retain the House and the Senate. And he's progressively losing his relevance, and then so he's fighting, basically saying, hey, I'm still here. And I get that as a presidential position on it, but the fact is the American people aren't the same place he is. That shows in the last election, overwhelmingly, his policies that he is still trying to defend the American people said are a bad idea.
Senator James Lankford on News Radio 1000 KTOK is joining us this morning, and is it me, or can he do damage to any predecessor, to any successor that could be a Democrat? In other words, if he digs in his heels and continues to not work with Congress and the Senate, can he be damning? I mean, can he just sit there and demonstrate that he can't get anything done with this Congress for like a Hillary Clinton down the road?
Sure, yeah. The next president has to answer the question, and the next person that's running for president has to answer the question over and over again. What would you do different than the previous president? So you go way back to Bush 41, who was the vice president of Ronald Reagan. He was going to try to say, I'm going to try to do things like Reagan. But then you got whoever runs after Obama is going to have to answer the question, are you going to do things like Obama? Now, the very liberal base is going to say, yes, we want that again. But the vast majority of the people that are in the middle and to the right would say that this was a disaster in many ways. What could have been a strong American economy has been a limping, slowly growing economy that's been anemic rather than powerful, which is the typical American economy to be more powerful. So, yes, this will cause serious long-term problems to his party. You can ask Democrats in Oklahoma what has been a lot of the issues with registration and with voting in Oklahoma, and they'll tell you over and over again, President Obama's policies as a national Democrat have dramatically hurt the Oklahoma Democrat Party.
What is with the inability to actually make some deals? In other words, if I were advising the president, I would say something along the lines of, okay, give him Keystone Pipeline in order to get a better bargaining power for your tax cut. How come we're not seeing that out of the administration?
Because he doesn't do deals like he described last night. Last night he said, let's 5 years, we agree, let's get it done. I had to stand a lot on that, but that's not what he has done. He and I have had that conversation where I've said there are issues that you and I agree on, but you perpetually stick things on that I don't like, or I try to put things on you don't like. Let's find the common ground issues, and let's move on things when we won't move as far or as fast as we need to go. But at least we'll get something done. And his response to me personally was, no, that's not how you do it. You have to do some things you don't like. I have to do some things I don't like. That's real compromise. Well, we're not going to get it done. So if he actually converted it.
I'm okay. It is what I am seeing is what I'm getting out of the president, right, Senator? Did we lose him? Crap! Look. Thank you, AT&T, or maybe the president heard that we were. Yeah. So it's true. What the senator says is what. Let's see if we got him back up here. I'm sorry. It looks like we were cut off.
It just got cut off there.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's true. What I'm seeing out of the president is what I get.
It is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, what you're seeing, but not what you're hearing. Unfortunately, what he says and what he does are two different things. We do need to resolve this. The ironic part last night was when he did the long monologue on let's get out of politics, let's not do fundraising, let's not do all this campaigning. I don't have any more campaigns again. It got an applause line from some say he has no other campaigns, but it's also an acknowledgement that that's not true. Even during the speech last night, running any more campaigns. He's still sending out fundraising emails. Again, you can't look at what he's saying. You have to look at what he's doing to be able to evaluate where we're headed.
Senator James Lankford, I could talk to you for 30 minutes, I know, on News Radio 1000 KTOK, but we both have things to do, and I know there's a tie-up over on Wilshire that Road King Rogers needs to tell us about on News Radio 1000 KTOK.